Hey guys, Egypt here, coming out with a video, and today I want to talk a little bit about rolling havoc with infernals. Rolling havoc is a azurite trait that whenever you use an ability during havoc on another target that gets duplicated, you gain stacking intellect, and I believe it can stack up to 10 times. And if you get all of these stacks, you'll increase your intellect by around 9,000 if you have 3 of them at high eye level. So I'll just briefly showcase that here. If I were to havoc, use my abilities during this havoc, you can see rolling havoc is stacking up. I'm at 5 stacks, 6 stacks, we'll get all the way up to 10 here, and you can see my intellect is being increased by 8,810. Now if I were to take this off and just show you my base int is 13,540, so I'm increasing my intellect by like 60 or 70%. It's a crazy amount of int gain. You can almost think about it like you're fonting 3 times during your infernal, which is actually a crazy DPS increase. So a lot of people will tell you havoc at the end of your infernal, the last 12 seconds of it, in order to maximize your 2-target cleave. And this necessarily isn't incorrect. You're generating rolling havoc stacks during those, so you're doing consistently higher and higher damage every time you chaos bolt during that havoc. Also, you're generating supremacy stacks during that havoc, so you're also doing higher and higher damage throughout that havoc, where you maximize your damage at the end of the havoc. But a lot of times you actually want to use your infernals to do priority damage to a target, and you don't care about the split damage, which means you're actually going to want to havoc at a different time, and you always need to think about your havoc before your infernal. So let's briefly showcase that scenario. So if you want to use your havoc in order to do optimal 2-target cleave, that means you're going to be havocing at around 12 seconds left. So what is 30 seconds before 12 seconds? That would be 42 seconds before that moment is when you should press your havoc. The reason being is that intellect is going to carry through the first part of your infernal. So let's briefly showcase that here. So if I were to want to use my havoc efficiently for 2-target cleaving with Zerking and Dark Soul, this is something that what it would look like. I would be to go on the target. I would use my havoc 12 seconds before I pop my infernal here. So we'll pop it. We'll be generating damaging stacks. So we're all the way up to 9 havoc stacks, and then we're going to font, and this would be roughly 12 seconds before my infernal. I would infernal, and now you see I have these 9 rolling havoc stacks going into my infernal, so I have 8,000 increased intellect at the start of my infernal. I can go ahead and pop Dark Soul now, and you see my havoc comes off at a good time to where I'm going to get efficient 2-target cleaving as well. So I maximized my havoc stacks at the start of my infernal, and now I'm maximizing havoc stacks during my havoc window, obviously, because and at the end of my infernal. So I'm getting a good amount of stacks at the end there, as well as doing good 2-target cleave with a high amount of supremacy stacks. So that's one way of using rolling havoc during your inferno. And now there's a couple other ways you can use it as well, which don't maximize your damage going into your infernal and at the end of your infernal on 2 targets, but it maximizes your single target output potential. And this is used on boss fights like this is used on a boss fight if you were to go on a boss like Mythic N'Zoth or Heroic N'Zoth, and you want to do a lot of damage to Psychus in his increased damage phase. You would use this sort of havoc strategy in order to maximize your intellect at the end of your supremacy. So what this means is, since havoc lasts 10 seconds and the rolling havoc buff lasts 15 seconds, you're going to have 25 seconds of that increased intellect, and you want that for your entire infernal. That means you're going to want to havoc either just when you pop your infernals or at the latest 5 seconds into it, so you have this increased intellect throughout. I'll show that when my infernal comes back off CD. This also means that you want to use your last havoc roughly 30 seconds before your infernal comes up, so they're coming up at the same time. And it's going to give you a lot of intellect in order to do increased single target damage at the end of your infernal. And this is something that's actually relevant and something that you should be thinking about on some boss fights where you want to do increased damage to a specific mob as a Destrolock. Destrolock is able to do that very well. Destrolock is able to use AoE traits like Flashpoint, Rolling Havoc in order to funnel single target, and it's really, really useful. So here's the idea. you're going to font, you're going to pop your infernals, and roughly, a few seconds into it, you're going to want a havoc. And you do get some 2-target cleave value during your infernals with havoc, so it's not too bad. But you can see I get all of these rolling havoc stacks all the way up to 9 stacks. Okay, and you see this buff, how it has 10 seconds left and my infernal has 10 seconds left. This means I'm able to maximize this aspect of my infernal in order to do a lot of single target damage. It's also worth noting that if you're not havocing later into your infernal, you don't get the increased shard gen of the conflags, which can be somewhat more valuable than the intellect if it's letting you get extra chaos bolts off. It sort of depends. I would say it's more valuable to havoc later to your infernal if you're especially running lucid, just for that increased shard gen almost. But it's hard to say. I would have to think about it a lot and maybe even run some sims with that sort of action list happening. However, it is something you want to consider to havoc earlier into your infernal to get that increased intellect for the duration of it, so you're just pumping more throughout. But it's also worth thinking that you also get more shard gen later, so if you're struggling for shard gen and you feel like you could value a lot more of that for your chaos bolts at the end of your infernal, then you should probably be saving your havoc for that moment. Anyways, hopefully this gives you guys something to think about in terms of when to use your havocs before and during your infernals in order to do more damage to what matters. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you guys later.